What's up, everybody? Welcome to After Hours for Week 14, Chargers versus Chiefs. You got me, Jamie Hoyle, and my good friend here, Craig Smith, on to cover the game. Craig, how you doing after yet another nail-biting loss to the Chiefs in Kansas City?
Take that meme from Breaking Bad and just post it on me. Like how they can't keep getting away with this. Like I don't. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So many breaks for this team. But look, you can take some solace in the fact that, and we were talking about this before we went live, the Chargers played a very good game. They were able to put together a pretty decent performance, all things considered. But still, man, a doink off the uprights that actually still goes in. Like, how many different ways can they keep making this work every single week?
Yeah. They get away with it so much. It's so crazy. Everything just seems to go their way. Can't explain it anymore. It just doesn't matter what happens during the game. Something's going to break their way late in the game. And it frankly, it's getting really fucking annoying. I'm tired of it. So I saw somebody asking, where's Garrett? Garrett came down with the flu this weekend and is home resting. He's not feeling well, so he won't be here. Hopefully we'll have him back next week. But you got me and Craig, and there's certainly plenty to talk about because all things aside, all bitching and moaning about the Chiefs and things working out for them aside, the Chargers actually did play one of their better games of the season in one of their biggest games of the season. And it didn't work out. The scoreboard didn't turn out the way they wanted it to, but for them to play the way they did in Kansas City in a big moment without their best wide receiver, honestly, like, I don't think you could ask much more other than a win. Pretty much everything went right in a lot of ways tonight, with the exception of the first half offense.
Yeah, overall, I mean, look at this performance, much like the last time around. It was a little reverse. What was the inverse? They spotted us, 10 in week 4. This time we allowed them to get up 13 and stormed back with the same result at the end. Another close game that results in a loss. But there's a lot, again, to take away from it. You have to be happy with the performance that you saw from guys stepping up in big moments. There are going to be some guys that get some love from us that, sometimes get a bad break, but most of the time deservingly so. Overall, if you want to just look at the season the rest of the way going forward, what you can feel encouraged about is the fact that this Chargers team can figure out a way to keep themselves competitive against the tougher teams. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this feels like one. If you want to say that you feel like they should have won it, I understand. But it's just a typical Kansas City crap, man. They get towards the end of a game, they get the ball with the final possession, and they just figure out a way to do it. And you can't necessarily say that it was on the refs this time around. There were some few things here and there, but nowhere near the crap that they typically get. They just played a really good final drive, and you have to give your tip your hat to Patrick Mahomes. As much as I hate to say it, dude just makes timely plays.
Yeah, he always seems to come through. The Chiefs offense in general just seems to come through one way or another. I think we have to start by giving a shout out to the defense, because even though they gave up that drive at the end of the game, you go into Kansas City and you hold them to 19 points in Arrowhead. And really, I mean, I think at one point they had hit Mahomes 12 times in that game. They finished the game with 3 or 4 sacks. I'm sure they wound up hitting him 15 or 16 times by the end of the game. They really, really pounded him, and it made a difference in the game as the game went on. So the defense deserves a huge credit. They didn't get hurt too much by Kelsey outside of a couple catches that I remember. Didn't seem like they got hurt too much by Hopkins. They contained the running game pretty well. For the most part, they did a good job of keeping Mahomes in the pocket until the end of the game. They had a great game plan. They were disciplined for probably 55 out of 60 minutes of the game. And they gave the offense a chance to hang around and work its way back into the game and get a late lead. So big time kudos to the defense, because they played really well.
Yeah, For sure. And it's been the defense for the majority of the season keeping the Chargers in these games. You take into consideration in the first half, the offense doesn't get it going. They only wind up with 13 going into the half. And then there were some adjustments made in the second half by the offense, which was great to see. But man, again, tip of the hat to Jesse Minter because he had a really good game plan, especially on third down. That was confusing Patrick Mahomes. You saw a couple three safety looks where you had three safeties playing high, where they were giving up the middle of the field on a few plays. You could tell Mahomes was expecting the middle of the field to be open again when he dropped back on third down, and they were erasing that. They were getting pressure without necessarily having to send 4 or 5 every time. Defense just did what they've been doing virtually all season long. It's just one play here or there that ends up costing the Chargers at the very end. But also, Quentin Johnson did a really, really good job tonight. And it's like I mentioned it before, there are guys that we criticize, and rightly so, and QJ's been catching heat specifically these last few weeks, but he played a confident brand of football tonight. That first pass that he caught, I don't know if it was the first reception he had of the night, but that over that he caught and took that shot, held on to the ball, hopped right up, and shrugged it off. And he was playing a physical brand of football tonight, which is not something that you normally see from him. He has a catch later on in the game where he has a DB sized up on a 2nd and long and takes him on, doesn't try to juke him, not only takes him on, but knocks him out of the game. So it almost feels like, again, players are starting to take on some of the image of their coach, hard-nosed, rough and rugged, and that's not something we expected from him. But again, it's just nice to see the progression. He knew that he had to have a bigger game with Lad out, and so he stepped it up. Just one of the few guys that get kudos from me tonight.
Yeah, and I think they're starting to figure some things out with man coverage. And this is something that we talked about on the Mailbag Show on Friday. We talked a lot about ways to beat man coverage. We talked about pick plays, and we saw a little bit of that. We talked about slants. We saw some of that. We talked about wheel routes. Not sure we saw a lot of that, but we talked about some deep overs and some deep crossers, which they had a lot of success with. And when they started running the ball more effectively in the second half, it set up play action. They were able to run some double moves and get some guys open down the field. So starting to figure some ways to get guys open in the deep and intermediate parts of the field versus man coverage, which is really encouraging because it's something they've really struggled with, especially the last few weeks. And then, you mentioned QJ. I think, QJ, Josh Palmer, and Stone Smartt all deserve a lot of credit for the way they played. Smartt exceeded his season total for yardage, receptions and yards this week. I think he had like 55 or 60 yards receiving, and he only had 44 all season before that. And he came up with a couple of huge plays for the Chargers that helped get them into scoring position. We saw Chark make a catch. We saw Palmer get open consistently and make plays for the most part. A lot of – did we lose Craig? I think we lost. There we go. Not sure what happened there. Oh. I can't hear you. I don't know what happened. Anyway, hopefully Craig can figure it out and get back here. But like I was saying, I think you got to give Smartt and QJ and Palmer a lot of credit for the way they played today. All three of those guys stepped up and made some big plays for this offense to help them move the ball in the second half. And QJ made 2 or 3 of the more physical catches that he's made all season. We also saw them, in my opinion, start to figure some things out with QJ. We saw some slants with QJ. We saw him sell a slant and stop and make that nice little pivot catch and get up the field for a first down on, I think it was 2nd or 3rd and long. So they're starting to find ways. They're starting to find ways to get QJ open against man coverage, which is huge. It'll hopefully really make him more comfortable and make him more productive as well. I see Craig coming back. Hopefully we can hear him.
What about now?
Yeah, now I can hear you.
Okay.
What happened?
I have no idea. I was on screen and I had a sneeze, and then after the sneeze, I was gone. I have no idea what's going on. I malfunctioned because of a sneeze, whatever.
um, and the way that they were able to throw the ball and run the ball in the second half was, I thought, was really impressive considering they're basically playing with a two-man offensive line. Their offensive line right now is terrible. At least the
Yeah.
interior, it's bad. I mean, you're getting called out by Chris Collinsworth on national television for being on the ground and for missing blocks. Pipkins he seems to be getting worse, and they're still running him out there on the field. So it makes you wonder what they're seeing in practice.
There's really no excuse for it at this point. I was really getting on Greg Roman's case in the first half because it didn't make sense to me that he was just allowing Herbert to sit back there and take as much of a beating. No, is Greg Roman out there physically blocking guys? No, but you know what he is doing? He's calling the plays. To me, there's no excuse that like the score was still 6-0 with what, like a minute left in the first half. And at that point, there was like 5 rushing attempts by the running backs because there was a few sprinkled in by quarterbacks on like scrambles and like 18 dropbacks for Herbert in the first half. And again, the game was 6-0 with 47 seconds left in the first half. So there was no reason to abandon the running game at that point. And it essentially took Herbert getting folded, like a quesadilla before they just decided they were going to put the running back game back into effect. And you saw how it worked in the second half. Trey Pipkins is a complete and utter liability. To the point now where almost every time Herbert drops back, I expect pressure to come from the right side against him. There were a couple of plays where he was just caught flat-footed and he was getting driven back into Herbert's lap. And even in the running game, which used to be something that he was at least decent about, he's not getting very much movement there either. So overall, it's time to make an adjustment. I think there's enough evidence that says that he's just not going to be the guy. I understand that you paid him. I understand that at the beginning of the season, Jim Harbaugh said that he was one of the top 5 offensive linemen. Well, I don't know if Jim can claim that anymore unless there's something that they're seeing from Jamari Sawyer in practice that says the opposite. But from the little bit that we've seen from Sawyer, he looks like he deserves a shot. And, Pipkins, I get it. He was one of your starting linemen to get the season kicked off. But at this point, you have to do something to protect your quarterback. And if guys aren't producing, you have to make the adjustments. So, again, kudos to Greg Roman for, again, I don't want to take it away from him from being able to come in, make adjustments in the second half, getting the running game established, which helped open up the passing game because then the defense had to respect those play action plays and linebackers would come down into the box and commit to the run, opening up some windows. And when you have wide receivers like the ones the Chargers currently have, you have to get creative in the way that you scheme them open. So good on him. I just hope that in the future, it doesn't take Herbert nearly having to be carted out of the game before you make those adjustments.
Yeah, it's time, especially considering they want to run the ball, and there's no doubt at this point that Salyer is better as a run blocker than Pipkins is. We haven't seen a lot of him as a pass protector, but at least Salyer moves the pile in the run game. He gets movement, which is something Pipkins is not doing right now. Both Pipkins and Zion are really struggling, just getting pushed around, and it's become a major problem because guys are getting just thrown into Herbert's lap, and there's nowhere for him to go. There isn't really even an avenue for him to escape with the way things are going in the pocket. It's getting dangerous, and you see him take a hit like he did from Bolton, which I got to tell you, I know it was a clean hit by the letter of the rule, but I think if Bosa or Mac hits Mahomes like that, it's a flag. Because he jumped into him and hit him in the ribs. It's clean. It's allowed in the rule book, but I just don't like that play with the intent that it was made with, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, how do you define defenseless player? Because to me, that kind of fits the description. But again, clean football play by the rules, but you have to ask the question, like, who would get that call? And Mahomes probably would. And I don't know what it boils down to in this event, but again, like I said before, you have to do what's necessary to protect your quarterback to the best of your ability. If there's no Herbert, this team goes nowhere, regardless as to how many touchdown passes he throws or doesn't. he's part of what keeps this offense going. Like, again, they want to be able to run the ball, but there's no other quarterback on the roster that can deliver the ball the way that he does, even for a short period of time. So if they were to lose Herbert for a game or two this season, I mean, not necessarily be sunk, but it's a strong possibility that it could. Overall, what I'm saying is you have to do what you have to do to protect your biggest asset. And right now, I think that tonight was kind of a reset for Greg Roman, and maybe he gets back to his roots a little bit more. I'm not saying just run the ball incessantly to the point to where you're just doing it and banging your head against the wall when it's not making sense, but understanding that even if it's not breaking for huge chunk runs like you were getting with J.K. Dobbins, is that you want to still make those deposits. 2 and 3 yards, 3 to 4 yards, those 4 yardage plays starts extending out to like 7 to 10 yards. You saw Gus get going later as the game went on, but that's the type of running back he is. He has to get in the groove. Once he's getting downhill, he can start leveraging himself against the defense as the game goes on. You start seeing that those runs improve. They break bigger gains, and you have to utilize Kamani Vidal and get him to the perimeter as just a little bit of a change up to help soften up the interior of that defense. But yeah, Gus Edwards is somebody that has to have the opportunity to get it churning during the game, which is again going to open up the passing game and makes life a little bit easier for Herbert. 5 and 7 step drops consistently throughout the game are not going to work because the interior of this offensive line is lacking, and that's putting it mildly. So again, hopefully this serves as a bit of a reset for Greg Roman, and we see in the coming weeks that the offense finds itself a little bit more balanced, but also not giving up on the run when it's not working early on.
Yeah, that was the big thing for me, and I think it kind of, the proof was in the pudding, so to speak. In that first half, they really didn't run the ball that much. They had several drives where Herbert dropped back 3 plays in a row, and they were 3 and out. They just could not move the football. Guys weren't getting open. Herbert wasn't getting protection. It just wasn't working. And then they come out in the second half, and what do they do on that first drive? They run the ball. And like Craig said, they start making those deposits. 2 yards here, 3 yards there, 4 yards there. You pop a long run. Now play action works. Guys start to get tired because Gus is pounding on them. Now maybe you get Vidal to spring loose for a 6 or 7 yard run. And now on the second drive, after they score that first touchdown on the second possession, what happens? The Chiefs are expecting the run because they got gashed by the run on the previous drive. Now you start setting up play action. You get that big pass to Stone Smartt. Actually, I think 2 big passes to Stone Smartt to set up another score. Now the offense is balanced. You're less predictable. And you have the ability to open up the playbook on first down because the Chiefs don't know what's coming. And it just made things so much easier in the second half for the offense. So it's something they've really got to focus on sticking with. I said on the Mailbag show, I thought this was a game where they really had to run the ball 20 to 25 times to be successful. They ran it 24 times total, and they had a late lead. So I think that kind of bears out. If you're running the ball 15 times, it's not enough. You got to be running the ball 20 to 25 times. You got to split those carries between 2 or 3 guys and just find a way to be committed to the running game. Even if it's 3 or 4 yards a pop, that's still better than dropping Herbert back 40 times and asking him to make every play.
Well, you just keep in mind, when you look back at that opening drive for the second half, it's 13 plays for 79 yards, and they used up almost half of the third quarter. 7 of those plays were runs. There's no coincidence here. The fact that that drive ended in a touchdown, which also came via Gus Edwards, tells you all you need to know about where this team needs to operate, specifically with where the offense is right now and where they have deficiencies. So if you're down to Ladd McConkey, you don't have someone who can be your hero in the passing game, although Josh Palmer did have a pretty good night as well. I'm glad to see him have stepped up. But Ladd's been the go-to guy, and without Ladd, you have to be able to have a plan B. Now, mind you shouldn't just be depending on one player in the passing game. You should be able to scheme other guys open and use him maybe sometimes as a decoy. But overall, even if the running game is not paying dividends. You have to make defenses at least respect the fact that you're willing to do it. That way they just can't pin their ears back and get after the quarterback almost every possession. You won't have those quick 3-and-out plays because it's also putting way too much stress on the defense, as well as the Chargers defense plays. I mean, those guys are going to get gassed. You got them out there for how many plays last week? Or was it against the Ravens? Or was that last week? I'm getting my weeks mixed up. When they were on the field for like 70-ish
It was
plays.
last week. It was like
Okay.
70, and I think the Chargers ran 44 or 45.
Yeah. So you can't ask your defense to be out there that often, with that little break in between snaps. Guys are going to get worn down. It doesn't matter how good they are. So ultimately, yes, again, hoping that just moving forward and getting beyond this game, even though it's going to be tough because these games always seem to come down to the wire against the Chiefs, and they all seem to end with them having the ball on a final possession somehow, some way. But ultimately, again, a lot of good to take away from this. Stone Smartt getting out there also shows you something else. He's not afraid of the moment. The guy's, he absolutely is your most athletic pass catcher at the tight end position. And all he did tonight was just move the chains. I think, what did he have? 3 catches? All 3 of them were big plays.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got a guy out there that you can depend on now in the passing game, and maybe you can get him in the mix a little bit. I mean, I don't know what's going on with the rest of your tight end core as far as injuries are concerned, but Stone's probably going to have to get a little bit more burn. And tonight tells me that he's able to do it. He may not be the blocker that you're looking for in the running game, but he does add an additional element that teams are going to have to respect as a receiver.
Yeah, agreed. I'm surprised it's taken this long. I mean, I know Disley's had a good season, but he's really not the threat that you need at tight end. And I said going into the season that I thought they would find a way to use Smartt in that kind of seam route, deep over kind of role that you see them use, that you see the Ravens use Likely and Andrews in, where you've got guys just running free down the middle of the field on play action on heavy sets. It's something that this offense has always done really well, and I just expected them to do it with Smartt, and it hasn't really come to fruition. But he was really good tonight, and not just making catches, but he made, I think, 2 of his 3 catches were like leaping contested catches over defenders deep down the field. So it's nice to see that happen because it's something they need. I think it helps them in the red zone if they continue to do it. It shouldn't have taken this long. It's kind of like the Pipkins conversation that we were having earlier, where it's like everybody sees it. We need to see him on the field in terms of speaking of Smartt, obviously. But for whatever reason, the coaching staff just hasn't seen it. So it's time to start expanding his role. The offense needs it. Herbert needs it. There's just no reason to hold him back anymore at this point. Oh, looks like we lost Craig again.
No, I'm here. I didn't unmute myself that time. Sorry. So it seems to me like a lot of the decisions that are being made may be coming off of practice and performance there, because when we see some of these guys in game, they're making a difference. So when you see Smartt perform to the level that he did tonight, it makes you wonder what they aren't seeing that wouldn't have him be a part of a game plan. You even mentioned it a little earlier. DJ Chark is a real human being. He exists. If he got a pass, he caught it. He kind of double caught it, but he still made the reception, and didn't really see much more of him throughout the night. So I'm not sure what happened there. I guess I'll check out what he did on the rewatch. But overall, I know this sounds kind of cliche, but some dudes are just gamers. They don't practice well, but when you put them under the lights, they can make it happen. I don't know if that's kind of what Stone Smartt is or not. But you got to start mixing some things up here to make the offense a little bit easier. There have to be some easy buttons here or there. I would love to see Smartt be more utilizing that screen game also. So, and as opposed to using him down the field, which you very much so should, but he's someone that you should let use that athletic ability in the short areas of the field. Again, not ask Herbert to drop back on these 5 to 7 step drops consistently, get the ball out of his hands, and allow some of these guys to go to work. And Smartt needs to be a part of that equation moving forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. He needs to be part of the equation. The screen game with Disley worked early in the year because nobody was expecting it. But it'd be nice to throw those screen passes to somebody other than a human glacier. So, and I think you get more out of those plays if it's Smartt instead of Disley. ultimately, I think this game really came down to 3 Chargers drives into two drives in the red zone that didn't result in points, and then one big missed throw by Herbert to
Mm.
Palmer that should have been 6. Um, you know, I think it was their first possession. I'm pretty sure they were in field goal range. They had like a 4th and 4, 4th and 3. I know a lot of people in the Discord wanted them to go for it. They wound up punting it instead of trying to kick a long field goal. You kick that. I mean, you could make the argument that if you kick that, they win the game, but it just changes the calculus because the Chiefs still have the ball at the end of the game, needing a touchdown. But if everything plays out the way it did, they've got the ball with 1:11 left, and the Chargers unable to stop the clock inside the 10-yard line. So you're still in the same situation. They just need 7 instead of 3. But that touchdown pass that Herbert missed to Palmer, that one hurt. That one was, I mean, it doesn't get more wide open than that in the NFL. And I saw some people I know in the Discord. I don't know if it was the same in Twitter, but a lot of people in the Discord were blaming Palmer for being slow. And I think we can be honest, have some intellectual honesty here and say that Herbert missed that throw. That was not a good throw. Needed just a little bit more air under it to give Palmer a chance to run under it. He overthrew him by about 2 yards. Got to have that. Can't afford to miss those throws, those wide open throws in the NFL. I mean, that's a gimme.
It's sort of been a thing this year, actually. There have been at least 2 others that Herbert has missed deep for wide open receivers this season. The deep balls just seem to be a little bit off for him this year. Don't know exactly what it is, but he's putting a little bit too much on it. Guys aren't able to run under it. He's just overthrowing them. So that route by Palmer was amazing. He put the DB in no man's land. He got him turned around, and he had no idea which direction Palmer was going in. And if Herbert could have underthrown that ball, at least it would have put the Chargers in scoring range at that point. Then they could have continued to run the offense from there and maybe potentially gotten a touchdown. Maybe, who knows? But I mean, at least 3 points off of that. They didn't score on that drive, right? They ended up having a punt. That was the drive that they didn't kick the field goal on, if I'm not mistaken. Was that the same drive?
No, I think that was the second drive of the game, I think.
Okay. Yeah,
I could be
maybe
wrong.
getting the drives mixed up. I know that the miss to Palmer was also in the first quarter, was it not?
What was that? Sorry.
The miss to Palmer, that was in the first quarter,
It
right?
was in the first quarter. It was near the first or second drive. It was
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, either way, the deep ball's just been a little off this year. I will say this. I would much rather those passes be going to Palmer, who's the better route runner, than QJ, because that's still a thing for some reason. You see these one-on-one opportunities that they're continuously giving to QJ, and he's just not, I mean, for as physically as he played tonight after catching the ball, he still has issues high pointing balls and fighting through, defenders to make contested catches. You see, more often than not, I don't think he's purposely trying to reach to catch balls with one hand. Like, he's just battling against DBs and they're able to pin one of his arms against his body just because he doesn't have the strength to get it away from them. But I guess they're just going to continue to do this. I don't know, until it works, or because they think that he has the ability to do it, even though there's not been very much evidence to prove that he can, like literally ever. But I would like to see more of those opportunities go to a guy like Palmer, because he can make those contested catches. And though he may not be the overall athlete that QJ is, he is the more physical of the two. And again, the better route runner. You saw him create separation. Even there was a slant that Herbert missed him on. I think the timing might have been thrown off because he put a little bit more of a double move on that slant, and Herbert threw it behind him, where he got, the middle of the field wide open again on the slant. I think it might have been on I don't know if it was a second or third down play, but another tremendous route. So Palmer, we might have something here. If he can string a few games together like he did tonight and they get Lad back, the passing game may be a little bit more manageable. And again, you have to say, congrats and be happy about guys like Smartt stepping up, because what it's proven to you is that this team may be more than just one receiving option. And if they can manage to put points up on the board and move the ball with these other guys who are stepping up, then they can be in decent shape. Again, it's all about development. So some of these guys have passed where we've seen them perform, like Josh Palmer. And if he can kind of channel some of that and QJ can keep it going, you can get Smartt in the mix, then you got a little bit more that you're cooking with in the passing game.
Yeah, Herbert's had some misses this year, but I think it is worth noting too that at some point within the last couple of weeks, he was the leading passer in the NFL on passes of 20 or more yards in terms of passer rating and efficiency and production. He was excelling on those throws. So he's had a few misses. The miss the miss tonight to Palmer was really bad. Got to have that. But overall, he's been, I think, if not the best, one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the league at throws of 20 or more yards in terms of completing them and being productive and efficient. So just wanted to throw that in there. Let's talk about the defense because they played. We mentioned it earlier, but I think we can get into a little bit more detail on it. They played their asses off tonight, and I think you got to give a shout out in particular to the pass rush, especially through the first 3.5 quarters. The pass rush was really, really good. I don't recall seeing Mahomes be that affected by edge pressure as he was tonight. They were in his face all night. They did a good job of pushing the pocket from the inside. The edge guys, for the most part, were extremely disciplined and able to really retrace their steps when they got upfield and get to the quarterback. Even when it looked like he was going to break contain, he almost always ran into a defender and wound up getting sacked or getting hit as he was getting ready to throw the football. So the pass rush was disciplined. It was drawn up well. They brought corner blitzes. They brought safety blitzes. They came with linebackers. They did everything they could from all different angles to confuse him and to speed him up and hit him. And like I said, I haven't looked at the final numbers, but they had to have hit him 15 times tonight, which only 3 sacks, I think. But
Yeah.
hitting Mahomes 15 times is no small feat.
Yeah, and walking away unpenalized, having hit him that many times is even more amazing, to be completely honest with you. So like you mentioned, the edge guys getting back, well, call it the same thing as a route runner. When you're a wide receiver, if you get knocked off of your stem when you're running a route, you're always told to get back on track as quick as you can. And that's what the edge rushers were doing. Even when they were fighting through contact, they were getting back on track and condensing the pocket down and, showing that they were able to keep all their so they were keeping their integrity in their rush lanes. So it was great to see Mahomes not able to step back there and just have his way in the passing game. He was basically flustered a lot tonight. I'm surprised he didn't throw a pick. There were a couple of those like lollipops that he threw up and the timing was just off. Like, a couple of guys made some bigger catches and the DBs were just maybe like a step or two away and not able to track the ball or even get a PBU or maybe an interception. Cam Hart with that huge dislodging of the ball inside of the 5 from DeAndre Hopkins. That was humongous. We're talking about an opportunity for KC to maybe go in for 6 instead of 3 there. But just overall, guys playing with their hair on fire. The pass rush was great. The running game, as far as the defense, wasn't bad tonight either. I think Deion Henley was also your leading tackler again. So just a solid performance all the way around. Again, against a team that's starting to get a little bit more healthy. You had Isaiah Pacheco back. They don't have their full complement of weapons, but as they are getting healthier, the Chargers were still able to basically contain them for the most part. And you can say this about the defense virtually every week. I mean, there have been a few hiccup games here and there where they're asked to do a ton. And again, playing a lot of plays can do that to you. But everyone basically stepped up tonight and did their job. And that's all you can really ask for. As the season continues to go on, you just want the offense to meet the defense's level of play, and they'll be fine. But the job that is being done overall with this defense, I can't say enough about the fact that, I'm sorry, Garrett has a flu, and I think I might be coming down with something too. My throat is killing me. But overall, defensively, if they can keep this up and the offense can also perform to the level that not necessarily that the defense is, but just being more consistent and balanced, then I think you have an opportunity to not only get into the playoffs, but maybe make a little bit of a run.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's worth pointing out that we've talked about this before. What the Chargers coaching staff is doing with the roster they have is pretty phenomenal. I mean, you think about them going into Kansas City and having a 17-16 lead in the fourth quarter of a game where they didn't move the ball really at all in the first half. No Lad McConkey. You've got a whole host of late round picks and guys off the street playing in your secondary. Two young linebackers, very inexperienced linebackers in the middle of the defense. Morgan Fox as one of your primary defensive tackles. And the way that they're coaching up that defense and they're holding down the Chiefs offense in Kansas City is really impressive. And then to be able to put the game that they put together, or at least the second half they put together on offense, is really impressive. They've got this team in position to make the playoffs. They're probably going to go 10-7, maybe 11-6, somewhere in that range, and make the playoffs as the 5 or 6 seed with one of the thinner rosters top to bottom in the NFL. It's basically the same team that it was last year that won 5 games outside of a few reclamation projects. And it's just going to be really fun to see what these coaches do and what the front office does with this team in the next 2 years once they start getting their guys in place.
Really what I'm looking forward to here for the remainder of the year, and I know we have a couple games before J.K. Dobbins is back, is once that happens, getting more of a balance between he and Gus Edwards, because I think there's something to be had there in the running game that's going to help this offense overall as they move towards the end of the year and into the playoffs. You saw it tonight. If you give Gus an opportunity to really start cooking later in the game, he can start making things happen for you. And if you're needing those chunk plays, JK can make that happen in the running game as well as more of a slasher. But yeah, as we move into the offseason, you'll be able to see them kind of fix some of the issues that are basically the interior of the offensive line is debilitating. There are no ifs, ands, or buts about that. They have to fix it. But right now, they're just going to have to circumvent it as best they can. And I think there are some options there. Greg Roman showed the ability to make some adjustments here, and we've seen him do that. Just it hasn't been as consistent throughout the year, but here and there, we've seen him make some changes to some of his game planning. But I'm really excited about the prospects of JK coming back if they can establish some balance between both he and Gus Edwards. And then, again, Lad back into the mix. You can see there are opportunities for the offense to be better and more consistent. They don't necessarily have to be explosive, but you see what they want to do. They want to drag teams down, keep the score low, and then force you to get into a rock fight with them and then be able to dominate you towards the end of the game. That's a formula that can work in the NFL, but you just have to be consistent and efficient. And I think that they need all hands on deck to be able to do that. And once their guys start coming back, they'll probably be a little bit more balanced as long as Roman sticks to what works.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think we're in store for a lot of fun seasons in the next few years. And this season's been fun too. I mean, coming off of a 5-win season, to have 8 wins at this point of the year and be in prime position to make a playoff run is, I mean, what more can you ask for to take that kind of a leap in year 1 with Jim Harbaugh with the roster they have? So hard to be upset. I know they lost this game. I know they got all of our hopes up. I don't know how you feel. We talked about it a little bit before we went on the air. I really didn't have any expectations for this game. Didn't really have any expectations for this game before they announced that Lad wasn't going to play. And once I heard he wasn't going to play, I really didn't expect anything. I went into this there was no stress for me in this game because basically if they won, it was like stealing one.
So yeah, same thing. Once the announcement came that Lad wasn't playing, and to be completely honest with you, I felt like if he did play, him not being 100% meant, and with the way he was laboring last game, you didn't even know if he would last the entirety of it. So as far as what I expected, I'm not going to say that I thought the Chargers would pull out a win. I did feel like they had a chance if the defense played to the level that they've been playing, specifically last week, if they could have created a really timely turnover that maybe even if it didn't result in points, got them into a short field. And then potentially, the Chargers could put up points that way. If they could maybe win the time of possession game, which might have been pie in the sky because there was nothing that really said the offense could sustain themselves. But this wasn't the Chiefs, or this isn't the Chiefs defense of the last few years. So I didn't feel like they were going to be completely out of it. But overall, I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up anybody's, and tell them that I really thought the Chargers were going to win this game. I figured that it would be competitive, but it just sucks to get into competitions like this against the Chiefs and come so close. And like you said, it felt like they would have stolen one, but this seemed like this would have been the ideal game for it to happen, because there were so many things that were up against the Chargers tonight. And for them to have been able to pull off a win would have said everything that you needed to know about a Jim Harbaugh team. Like, again, there are some differences between this year's iteration of the Chargers and years past. Like, offensively, you can basically say that there's less talent at the wide receiver position overall, so they don't have that. They're still finding ways to manufacture, not really very many points, but they're able to find ways to make some offense here and there to at least make it interesting, and to keeping the score a little bit lower. It's keeping them in games, the defense, and their ability to kind of sort of come up with offense when they absolutely have to have it. And so they're just playing these consistently close games, which is fun to watch. It is exciting because you never feel like they're really out of any game. But an opportunity like they had tonight in Arrowhead, I didn't necessarily think they were going to come out with a victory, but man, it would have been sweet to be doing this pod if they had that freaking ball every other time. How many times, I'm not going to do that to myself. I just don't understand how the ball dunks off the upright still goes in like that. I don't get it. The physics of it just is weird.
And if they're 1 or 2 yards back, it hooks past the line. It hooks and it misses. It doesn't even hit the upright.
We can do this and torture ourselves all night long because it's always the game of what ifs with the Chiefs. It's just the way that it works out. So it's going to be rough getting past this one because they were right there. They were kind of on the cusp of it. But like you mentioned, in seasons moving forward, there's a lot to look forward to, because you're thinking about everything that they're doing with this team that's being held together with like gum and, masking tape in a lot of situations. And the fact that you can see how important the interior of an offensive line is, because you got the Chiefs that are basically the inverse of the Chargers on the offensive line. They have like an all-pro interior offensive line. And although, and let's be honest here, because at this point, I'm full-on convinced that Jawan Taylor has his own set of rules and is an NFL offensive tackle. But aside from the fact that their tackles are complete garbage, Mahomes is able to kind of navigate and avoid pressure on the edges because he has a really good interior offensive lineman. Now, think about what the Chargers and Herbert are going to be able to do once they get that situated. They've got two what will eventually be, I believe, all-pro tackles to bookend on each side. And if they just get serviceable interior offensive linemen, I think they're going to be really, really good and tough to deal with moving forward. So in a season where they're kind of shorthanded and they're deficient in certain areas, they're still 8-5 and looking at a playoff opportunity. So as pissed off as some people are, they're kind of tracking towards the record that I think we all kind of came around to predicting. Like you mentioned, either a 10 or 11 win team. There's still an opportunity for that to happen and get into the playoffs. Some might have thought Harbaugh was going to come in year one and them go on a Super Bowl run. And I don't think that's what any of us were expecting, but you have to be, at least happy about the product that you're seeing on the field, and the fact that the Chargers, again, are basically in every game that they play in.
So the Chargers have 4 games left. They play the Bucs next week, the Broncos the following week, then the Patriots, and they finish with the Raiders. You mentioned they're tracking towards what we expected going into the season. So let's do just a quick prediction. We've done this once before. Let's see if anything has changed. Next week they play the Bucs. Looks like they host the Bucs next week. What is your prediction for the Bucs game?
So looking at the Bucs earlier, and they can be had. The game's at SoFi, right? So I'm going to say they win against the Bucs.
I agree with that. I think they can get to Baker and force a couple turnovers that'll flip that game. So I think they beat the Bucs. What about the Broncos, which I'm pretty sure is a game that we all had as a win earlier in the season? What are your thoughts now?
That's the one that I'm concerned about. They're finding decent QB play at this point, and I mean, defensively, the Broncos can definitely stymie a good offense, let alone one that's struggling and missing pieces. That's the one that worries me. Uh, so I hate saying a loss to Denver, but that's the one I think they drop.
Yeah, that one scares me. They're well coached. They get after the quarterback. They have a good secondary. Nix is playing well and seems to be ascending. They have a pretty good complement of weapons. That one scares me. A few weeks ago I wouldn't have said this, but I would not be surprised if they lose to the Broncos. And I hate to say that because I don't know that they can afford another AFC loss, but that one worries me. What about the Patriots?
They better not lose to the Patriots. And I don't think they will. Nothing about the Patriots scares me. I'm Drake May. I mean, he's playing some decent ball, but I feel like he's getting way more credit than he deserves at this point. I don't want to take anything away from him as a player, that he is, for what he has to work with, doing a pretty decent job. But I don't think there's any way that they lose to the Pats unless they're playing in like a blizzard. Is this one at home or is it away? Are they playing this one on the road? Pretty sure it's on the road, right?
It's on the road.
Yeah. So unless they're playing in a blizzard with like zero visibility, I don't think there's any way that they lose to the Pats.
I agree. I don't think the Pats are very good. I know Drake May has been playing very well, but I think the Chargers defense will give that offense some fits. I don't think the Pats have much in the way of weapons that can threaten the Chargers defense. And they finish at the Raiders in Week 18.
The Raiders and the Giants are playing for the Shador Sanders Bowl. So neither one of those teams are looking to end the season with very many wins, to be completely honest with you. So I don't think the Chargers are going to lose to the Raiders. Again, they had better not. And also, I think your head might explode if they lose to the Raiders, just due to the head coaches. So for Jamie's well-being, I'm going to say the Chargers definitely win that game. And yeah, we hate the Raiders anyway, and nothing's more fun than making fun of their fans. So I look forward to that. I mean, a lot of my predictions about the Raiders have come true. I said that by the trade deadline, their best player would no longer be a part of their team, and that worked out well. So just look forward to further dashing their hopes and dreams.
Yes, my head would explode. I might die of heartbreak if they lose to the Raiders. It would kill me. Because it would make it that much harder to say fuck Antonio Pierce. I'm just hoping the Raiders keep him for a lifetime of misery. I mean, a lifetime contract, and let him run that team for as long as possible. But yeah, I think they beat the Raiders. The Raiders are not very good. I would not be surprised if we're looking at Desmond Ritter as the full-time starter for for Las Vegas by the time we get to that game. And I think the Chargers win that game. I'm not worried about that at all. So we have them finishing 2-2 down the stretch, which would put them at
Did you have
3-1? 3-1.
Yeah,
3-1. So they finish 11-6 on the season, according to both of us.
Yeah, I have to go back and check my preseason prediction, but I think I had them at 11 wins. The path there would be interesting. Go back and revisit who we had them winning and losing to, just to see how that lined up. But I think we're going to get to the same result, just different games.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think some of the predictions changed over the course of the season. Like I know I had them losing the Ravens game early in the year, and then I thought they'd win it when they got to it. So it'll be interesting to see how some of that stuff changed. But I think I'm pretty sure I had them with 11 wins as well. All right, it's getting just about time to wrap this up. So why don't we take like 4 or 5 questions? If anybody has any questions, fire them up in the chat there for us, and we will read them. Let's see what we have, if we have anything in the starred section. We can start with this one from Aldo Vicente. What do you guys think about the choice to run inside on 3rd and 16 late in the fourth quarter when we were on the 24-yard line? I'm assuming this was on the field goal drive at the end of the game. I am going to say that the Chargers wanted to make sure they scored points, and they did not want to take another sack. And based on the way the interior offensive line was performing, and specifically the way that Zion and Pipkins had just performed on the previous play, because I think that was right after the sack that they gave up, um, where Pipkins, I think, got thrown down to the ground and Zion got beat. Um, I think they just wanted to make sure they scored points and they didn't want to take any unnecessary chances. So, would you like to see him be more aggressive? I guess, but again, no interior offensive line, questionable weapons. Um, I'm kind of okay with taking the points there just for the sake of making sure you walk away with the lead and nothing catastrophic happens.
Yeah, in a lower scoring game where points are at a premium, you got to do what you have to do to walk away with something. In that scenario, do you want to take an opportunity or risk dropping back in another 5, 7 steps and allowing the Kansas City Chiefs to tee off on the interior, run whatever scheme they want to get to Herbert and potentially knock you out of field goal range? Then you essentially have to punt and get nothing. So I was perfectly fine with the play call, especially since the Chiefs clearly wasn't they clearly weren't looking for the Chargers to run on the interior. There was all kinds of space to get at least another 7 or 8 yards. So they basically settled down in Digger's range, and he came away with 3. So again, in a game like this, you have to get points. You can't walk away with nothing. And if you're in your range, you do what you have to do to ensure that you do score. So I didn't have a problem with it at all.
Agreed. Let's see what's next. Nathan Harrison says, "What do we need to do to keep 36 and 79 off the field?" Obviously, referring to Jasir Taylor and Trey Pipkins. And at this point, it seems like one or both might need to die to keep them off the field. I there's plenty of reasons to keep them off the field, and they're getting healthier at corner. So it would make sense that they would not be on the field. But then you've got to keep third down late in the game, and they've got Jasir Taylor trailing Hopkins by 10 yards down the field. I don't know what the hell he's thinking, but that's the last guy who should be one-on-one with Hopkins late in the game.
So I'm assuming we mean legally. I can't come up with anything along those lines. What comes to mind for me are the movies Taken or Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding situation. Pick one. Either way, it'll get the job done. Because at this point, I'm assuming performance doesn't really matter. I get that they're down like some bodies in the secondary, so maybe that's why they have Jasir Taylor out on the field. I don't care. Figure something else out. Somebody's better than him that's hanging out on the sideline. Just give it a shot. Just keep him out altogether. As far as Trey Pipkins goes, you have someone that has proven themselves to at least be like somewhat competent, but they just don't want to give him an opportunity consistently. So I don't know. I mean, again, by legal means, I'm not sure that we can make that work, but I can come up with some other stuff. Y'all just got to be able to pay my bond. Oh, we're all coming down with something.
All right. Next question is, we'll just follow up with Nathan's question with James Heritage's question, and he says, "Who do you want at right guard? Salyer, McFadden, Hymas, or Searle?"
Sawyer. That's the easy answer. I don't know what's going on with McFadden. There seemed to be so much promise for him at the beginning of the season, and now he's just been like a healthy scratch throughout the year, and they don't seem to have a spot for him, which is really, really weird. Hymas, literally anybody right now would be a better option to me than Pipkins, but specifically Sawyer. I think he should absolutely be in the mix. Other than that, just whatever gets Pipkins off of the field is all I care about.
Agreed. Yeah, it's got to be Sawyer. He's the one we've seen. He's the one who's played well. McFadden is a ghost. Hymas is a ghost, and Searle is Searle. So don't really expect or need to see any of them in there at this point. More Jasir questions. From Cristiano 714, do you think they'll try Zion at center before giving up on him? And do you give him another year at left guard?
That's weird, man, because Zion has some decent games and then there's stinkers. There's just no consistency. I think they have faith because they see the physical tools. To be completely honest with you, I think Zion's a better player if he had a capable center to play next to. If you could promise me that the Chargers will get a center that's worth a crap next season and you want to keep Zion around, I'd be cool with it. Definitely replace Pipkins. But if you can give me a competent center, I think that helps Zion out. There are some technique things that still need a lot of work. I hate what happens when he overextends in space. Like he pulls, sometimes he's off balance and he gets thrown out of the way, or he'll just miss a guy completely. Some of that is technique, but the guy has athleticism. He's strong as an ox, but I just think he's better served in between two capable players, and you can kind of make that work. Will he ever be an all-pro guard? Probably not, but I could see them continuing to give him at least one more shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's entering year 4 at this point, so I'm sure they will decline his 5th-year option heading into next year, and I would not try him at center. I don't think he recognizes or adjusts to stunts or blitzes very well. And for that reason, I would not want him to be the one calling out protections and making those adjustments. I don't think he's capable of doing that at this point. So not something that I would explore. Would I give him another shot at left guard? I tend to agree with Craig. I think he would be better with a competent center playing next to him. And I'd probably be okay with it in year 4. But beyond that, you'd need to see a lot of improvement.
Yeah, sorry, I got lost in the sauce there, and I didn't even think about the question with regard to him playing center. Yeah, it's just I think there's too much on his plate right now. He's still figuring guard out, so calling out protections and expecting him to be the guy to man the middle of the offense. I don't know how comfortable I feel about that.
Last one from Expo. What's the plan for running back next year, and any draft running backs in mind?
That
What
actually
do you
is a
think?
very interesting question because Gus is still under contract for one more year. I think they signed him for 2.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what's going on with JK. They did just draft Vidal, but Harbaugh loves his running backs, so it's not beyond him to take another one at the draft next year at some point. I'm just not sure what they think of JK moving forward. Gus will still be a complimentary bruiser, but as far as actual backs in the draft, there are a few. The thing about it is if they keep Gus, then it makes him somewhat redundant. So it depends on which style of running back you're looking for. So I actually like Devin Neal from Kansas. I mean, Amari Hampton is a back out of North Carolina that makes some sense. I know who Jamie wants, so I'll let him do the honors there. But other than that, I haven't dug really, really deep into the draft. Those are just some names off the top of my head. There's Damian Martinez. I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan. He's another bruiser that has really good feet that can make things happen. But again, to me, it all depends on what happens with Gus Edwards, because I think the running back that they draft next is going to have to fit a style and be complementary. And you don't want too many of the same type of backs on your roster.
So I'm sure they're going to draft at least one running back next year. Maybe bring in another free agent reclamation project, depending on who's out there. I usually try to stay away from ASU players because they've burned me in the past. So I try to avoid them, but I love Cam Scatabo. I love everything about that guy, and I watch him play, and he's just got Harbaugh stamped on his forehead. That guy is everything Harbaugh likes in a football player. He's patient. He's got great vision, good burst to the hole. He's a physical runner. He finishes every run falling forward, runs through arm tackles. He's got enough wiggle to make people miss in the hole. He's not a guy who's going to hit a lot of home runs, but he'll get you some, 20, 25, 30-yard carries, kind of like what JK did this year. He can catch the ball and he can block. He is fantastic, and he is a workhorse. He's a little older. He was a transfer. He is got a little bit more mileage, more tread on the tire than some guys. So he might fall a little bit. He might be like an early to mid day 3 guy. In which case, I think it makes a lot of sense to try to grab him. I love him. I love everything about the way he plays, and he looks like the perfect kind of blend of Gus and JK with the way he runs.
And I know some people are gonna wonder why the name Ashton Genty didn't pop up. It's because the Chargers are not going to have a chance at Genty unless they were willing to trade up for him. I would not be surprised if this is the first running back that goes. How early did what was it? No, he went in the top 10, right? To Atlanta last
Bijan?
year. Bijan wasn't Bijan in the top 10 to Atlanta?
I think he was like number 5 or something like that.
Yeah. So you're talking about Genty somewhere in the top 10. So yeah, don't even worry about it if you're a Chargers fan and getting Ashton Genty. That would be fun, but there's no way that happens unless they make it happen. And I don't think they'd be in that business.
Yeah, if you guys get a chance, go watch some film on Scatterbo. I promise you will love him. The guy just runs his ass off. He is a bowling ball with tree trunks for legs. So tough to tackle, and he almost single-handedly beat Iowa State on Saturday. So go check that out.
Yeah, he actually cut weight to play this year, I believe, right? Cut like 15 pounds. Yeah, so you can tell he's a little bit more nimble.
He was the best player on the team already, and and lost 15 pounds so he could be a little quicker and a little bit more explosive, and it paid off. All right, it's getting late for a Sunday night, so I think we're going to call this one right now. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. We appreciate it. We will be back with more shows during the week this week. Craig, I think, will be back with I Got 5 on it. I should be doing a walkthrough to preview the Bucks game at some point this week. And then assuming Garrett's feeling better, hopefully we get to see us score more. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the continued support. We appreciate it. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, all that good stuff everywhere you can. And have a great rest of your Sunday night. Thanks, everybody. We will see you next time.
Salute.